When were you drafted, or when did you enlist?
1967.
Nice. What do you remember about the day you enlisted?
About the day I enlisted?
Yeah. Anything specific?
Terrified.
That makes sense. And I forgot to go back. What's your name?
Oh, my name is Borrero. This is my rifle, this is my gun, this one's for fighting, and this one's for fun.
I'm so putting that on the internet. And what branch of the military did you serve in?
U.S. Army. Thought you'd like that one.
How did you tell your family and friends that you were joining the military? And are there any conversations that stand out from that time?
I didn't tell them.
Why?
Well, I told my wife. That was the only one I told.
Why no one else? Just because you were going? Bye-bye?
No, life prior to that sucked pretty bad, and I really didn't give a shit about anybody else. You want the truth, I'll give you the truth.
Yep. Let's see. I guess, what were some of the reasons that you joined the military? And how did you choose the branch of service?
The government chose the branch of service for me. And at that time, the draft was really big, really hot. And people that were getting drafted for 4 years. And if you got a 4-year draft, you would serve 2 tours in Vietnam, 18 months apiece out of that 4 years. So I got smart, and when they said, if you come in voluntarily, we'll knock 2 years off, I took it.
I probably would have taken that as well. How did you imagine military life before you joined, and how did your perceptions change after serving?
I didn't imagine it before I joined. It was the last thing on my mind.
Any funny moments from boot camp?
Any what?
Funny moments from boot camp?
Yeah, but I can't speak about them in public. We did some pretty raunchy shit to some of the guys. Yeah.
Where did you serve during the war?
During the war? Vietnam.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends back home?
Writing letters every once in a while when I could.
Did you stay in touch a lot, or was it very far and few between?
Very far and few between.
And that was because of the war that you were in, not so much...
It's because of the circumstances that I was involved in. I was in heavy conflict areas and areas where you had to pay attention or you're dead. So riding out in the middle of the jungle on a rain-filled night wasn't a good idea. I always thought that it would be better to stay alive and focus on staying alive rather than writing letters.
That makes a lot of sense. Can you describe how you felt coming home from combat?
Really angry, really hurt. Disappointed in myself. It's called survivor's guilt. I left early, left a lot of friends behind. A lot of friends.
Oh, jeez. I don't even know where to go with that. Why are these questions the way they are?
I didn't figure you would. That's a hard one.
Yeah.
That's one I never told anybody for 40 years.
Well, hopefully it's a weight off. A little bit, at least.
A little bit of it's gone. I'm occasionally reminded by it every time somebody says thank you for your service, which I don't even know what it means.
I think there's a lot of service members who don't know what that exactly means because it's said so much, but what's really behind it when the people you fought for don't necessarily stand for you.
Yeah.
Is there someone that you served with that you remember fondly?
Chico.
Chico.
Yeah, little Puerto Rican guy from New York introduced me to heroin.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll never forget Chico.
Yeah, I would say that is someone that, yeah, he took you down a whole whirlwind path. That's for sure. And this is gonna be especially because of, you know, where you served and stuff like that. Don't know if there were any fun things, but were there any fun things that you and your friends did together while deployed, maybe during the day?
No, there was not absolutely no fun in any of it.
Because I know today, you know, we see military members and they're out in Iraq and Afghanistan and stuff like that, but they're still posting, you know, funny videos and shit like that on social media. So
Two different
but
wars.
Obviously, two different wars, two different times. So
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of time for fun. Every once in a while, they'd fly in some famous singer.
Anyone you remember?
Fly in Bob Hope.
Well, I bet that was a great time.
Fly in all the little hoochie mamas from the football team, the cheerleaders. Yeah. The only problem with that is that when you're in situations like that and you're constantly getting pounded and you constantly have incoming fire, it's really hard to enjoy yourself when you're getting hit. You know, I didn't have any fun times. Some guys that did extended tours over there got to go to places like Hawaii and stuff like that for R&R. They called it R&R, rest and relaxation. So you could come back and do it again, but I wasn't there long enough.
How long were you there?
About 6 months. That's something else nobody knows.
Yeah. So any particular thing that brought you home?
A divorce.
That was to my first sister's mom, right?
Your what?
My first sister's mom?
Your first sister's mom?
Yeah.
You mean Charlene?
Yeah.
Yeah, that girl without a name. Yeah. Yeah.
Poor girl.
You ought to send her this video.
Well, yeah, everybody's gonna get it.
Yeah.
And we'd go into more detail on that, but that's not necessarily about her. This is about you and your service. Did you ever learn anything about a fellow service member that surprised you? I know you weren't necessarily there for a long time.
Who
but
came up with that fucking question?
I don't know. I'm assuming they've got, I don't know.
And nothing surprised me about anybody I served with. We were all nuts.
Well, there you go. Well, there's a lot of secrets that people
doing a lot of drugs and drinking a lot, and nothing surprised me.
There's a lot of people that got super secrets, so
yeah,
you never know.
They got some super secrets, all right.
When you did leave the military, what was the process like?
Mine was quick, fast, and in a hurry. They pulled me out of the middle of a firefight deep in the jungle, and told me my wife was divorcing me, and put me on a plane to, where'd we go to? Japan. And then civil flight picked me up from there and took me to, I think it was San Francisco, and then back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
I had no idea that's a thing. They'll actually pull you out of the military if your wife decides to divorce you?
Well, you have to understand that at that particular time, that conflict was a pretty heavy one, and and a lot of the guys were getting what's called Dear John letters on a regular basis, and if you didn't take your own life, Charlie would. They did that. It was called a hardship discharge. They did that in such a way that it probably saved my life, although I didn't realize it for another 40 years. But they did that in such a way that it was real quick.
Well, I mean, I could be grateful for that because
Imagine yourself in the middle of a combat situation where you're taking heavy fire and your wife sends you a letter says she's going to divorce you. What would you do?
yeah.
You know what I mean? It'd be really hard to concentrate on the firefight.
Oh yeah.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean? It'd be really hard to
mind on
concentrate on not standing up and just getting hit. You know what I mean? And you got all that shit going through your head and you're trying to stay alive at the same time and it's a fucking mess. Can I say fucking?
Yeah, if he puts that part in there, we'll probably just
You think of something.
bleep it out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're in the middle of the jungle, right? So the military gets this message that your wife is divorcing you, so they had to come to the middle of the freaking jungle to pull you out.
To get me out in they got me out in a helicopter.
Goodness sake.
They lost all my civilian clothes, all my uniforms, all my dress greens. So they had to send me home in my jungle fatigues.
So that's why.
And when we got to San Francisco, the flight attendant wasn't going to let me on the plane because she thought I was AWOL. She thought I was running.
So is that why you don't have any of your uniform?
That's why I don't have any of my stuff. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I thought maybe
they
it was
lost
lost
it. The second day I was there, they lost all my shit.
I thought it was maybe lost in storage or something.
Nope.
Yeah. Was there anything or anyone that helped you during the transition from military to civilian life?
No.
That had to have been hard.
When I got back home, I went to Mom's and told her I just got home from Vietnam. I need a place to live. And she said, "I'm sorry, mijo, you can't stay here if you're a grown man."
Oh.
And said, "Good luck."
Dang, Grandma.
Yeah, pretty ruthless, huh?
Grandma was pretty harsh.
Yeah, yeah.
Goodness sake. So no
Hated
Auntie
her guts
Jean?
for the next 40 years.
Auntie Jean was also in
Yeah.
service, right?
Yeah.
So you couldn't actually stay with her.
Yeah,
Goodness gracious.
yeah. You didn't know that, did you?
No, there's a lot of things
So I
learned
spent
about
the
you.
next 5 years hitchhiking back and forth across the United States, living under bridges. And wherever I could find a place to lay my head.
Didn't you walk across the Mojave Desert barefoot or something like
Yep,
that?
sure did.
That's why your
Almost
feet
got
are so
arrested
strong.
too for not wearing shoes.
For not wearing shoes?
Well, that's what they pulled me over because I didn't have any shoes on. It was 120 in the desert.
But that's on you. What the hell? Doesn't even make sense.
You have to be
That's
a police
dumb.
officer to understand his thinking, you know.
That's dumb.
There's a guy in the middle of summer, dead in the middle of summer. It's 120 out here in the shade, and he's walking barefooted. We better ask him some questions. You know, what the fuck you doing out here?
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
So you've been out for a while, and I know that it hasn't necessarily been the easiest. Do you have any advice for others transitioning out of the military?
Seek help as soon as possible. There's help out there.
Any particular areas that one should look? I don't know, any type of fellowship somewhere, hospitals, churches?
No, most of the, the churches, you have to actually believe in God for that stuff to work. But anyway, we won't go there. No, you know what? There's plenty of help out there. It's just that it's not easy to admit that you've got a problem. One of the disorders I suffered from for such a long time that was the most difficult for me was that survivor's guilt. And I've talked to a few vets that have been coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, places like that, and they deal with the same thing because you have to leave people behind that you've grown close to, and that you know without a shadow of a doubt will have your back in an instant and give their life for you. And between there and here, there aren't too many people out here that'll do that. You know what I mean? There just aren't. You know, it takes a special. I want to say special because it's become a really important word to me in my life, especially over the last 35 years or so. But it takes someone special to understand how you're feeling and know how to get in touch with that and help you through it, because it's really difficult. You know, when you go into the military, they teach you all sorts of things that are useful, like how to kill and how to fight and how to stay alive. But what they don't teach you, is how to stay alive after it's all gone and after it's done. They just don't talk about that, and it's difficult out there for a lot of men and women, and that's why I say seek help as soon as possible. We're trained to believe that we can't be killed. True story. But in reality, you know, there's things that are far worse than death. You know what I mean? Like the mental anguish and the anger and the fear and the rage and all that other stuff that goes on inside of us, you know, that we just don't talk about because we're taught not to. You know what I mean? Real men don't cry. You know, real Marines, real soldiers just die. They don't cry, they just die. That's some bad information. Some bad information. And like I said, they don't teach you how to deal with that kind of stuff out here in the real world. Once you get out here, you're here, and that's over. And it's sad because it takes a lot of lives. That's why the suicide rate is so high. You know, and I've been there. You know, locked up in an institution for fear of taking my own life because I couldn't take it anymore. What else do you want to know before I beat the life out of you for doing this?
Okay.
See my grandson sitting over there. Look, I'm going to show you this book. You see this book?
What do you think, babe?
I have to tell you this. You see this book? So a friend of mine handed it down to me. I need to tell him, honey. I need to tell him for you. And it's a time to honor. It's about Vietnam. And when my son, who is 9, gonna be 9, we're going through it one night, he just burst into tears. And he said to me, "I'm so glad you didn't die." And it tore me up inside. But I know how he feels. And so he don't want me reading this book. He don't even like this book. So we keep it closed till he's a little older, hopefully, a little more understanding, and it won't be so painful for him to read this. So, yeah, I keep it. I shared it with another friend of mine who lost his dad in Vietnam and never got a chance to know him, so I shared this book with him. And I just got it back, but yeah, it's a good book. It brought home a lot of exactly what I went through. Service, duty, and sacrifice, it says. Still doing the same thing. Service, duty, and sacrifice. Okay. I guess the boy wants me to stop. Yeah. All right. Are we good?
We're good, babe.
You want your rifle back, son? Hey, will you put this up for me?
But see, because of this, when he gets older, he will understand.
Yeah.
And he'll be able to...
I love you.
And he'll have this forever.
Right. I'm not going to read it, honey. I'm not going to read it, okay? We'll put it up
Okay, wait.
when they leave. I'll put it up.
I have one more question. Because you have children, obviously, one's sitting on your lap, the other one's talking to you. What do you want them to know about your military service?
That I'm proud I served. That it was an honor to serve. And that I'll never forget it. Because at one time this used to be a great country and it was worth fighting for. I have second thoughts today, 50 years later. You know, I see things just going to pieces, going to hell in a handbasket. And I don't know. Makes me wonder what it was all for. When I see him and I see you, I know what it was for. Used to tell the boys over there, we used to always remind each other that we were better off fighting that war over there than here on our own ground. And I still believe that today. Mm-hmm. You know, still believe that today.